All right, hold on. Let me fix my mic. I apologize, guys. What's up, guys? This is CS with DWP, and I came across a podcast that I'm actually going to listen to after this. But I just want to give a shout out to Tintin. Um, the the theory crafters did a roundtable about Tartaglia. Um, Now I haven't watched it yet. But the reason why I'm even shooting this podcast is I wanted to give my 2 cents before I watched that video because I didn't want what they say to influence my opinion and my take because my take is coming from a different philosophy of like what's effective in a game, basically, right? So I fully understand what's going on in this game now. I'm just kind of playing catch up, right? Like I don't have Kazuha. I don't have Venti. Like I understand vaporize and melt now. Like I understand what's available, so on and so forth. And I kind of understand team comps and damage distribution at this point. And the knowledge that I have of builds in the past, I feel like I do have some kind of right to be able to speak on whether Tartaglia is meaningful in your team or not. Now, to be quite frank, Tartaglia is a record holder in speedrunning. Like he has one of the biggest one shots in the game. Like he is a nuke. That's effectively what he is. As far as if you're like one of those guys who are going for like high level DPS, big shot, my muscles are bigger than yours. Ooh, look at my BMW versus yours type of DPS. You can do that with Tartaglia. And you can do that with C0. Um, I think for a free to play perspective, though, keep in mind I don't have him built, but I don't think you necessarily need to have him fully invested to understand what you're getting into. Right? Great character, very flexible as far as what you can put on him. You can use him with the rust. There's pros and cons to that. You can use him with the stringless. There's pros and cons to that, namely the substat. You can use them with sacrificial bow doesn't work if that's all you got, sure, but just give you a heads up that does not work. You can use it with Favonius. If you want to get crits, so on and so forth. Like he is relatively flexible as far as weapon choices, as far as his builds are concerned. Obviously, I don't have a build, but you can run 4-piece Hydro, 2-piece Hydro, 2-piece Noblesse, 4-piece Noblesse. You can run a whole host of things on him. Would you run 4-piece Noblesse? Totally up to you. Typically, 2-piece Hydro, 2-piece Noblesse is what you would kind of go for on a Tartaglia build. As far as, and the reason why I think it's important is because I got the question today, and I didn't really feel like I had enough time to really talk about it. But because there was so much to talk about in regards to his kit and what he is on your team. So I kind of want to start with the what is Tartaglia. Well, for starters, Tartaglia is a main DPS, and I don't think anybody what I don't want is, at least for my viewers, to get confused about what he is. He can sub DPS, but he's going to sub DPS by way of tagging in and staying in for an extended period of time, or coming in, hitting his burst, and then tagging out to somebody else. But he has to be on the field to do any type of DPS. He's not somebody you can, you know, set something down and then you're good, or you can, pop his burst and then pop out to somebody else while your burst is still going. He's not that type of a character. He only is going to be effective when he's the active character. You know what I mean? And that could make or break someone's strategy depending on what they're going in for. Right? So, hold on. Get myself kind of settled real quick, and then I could really kind of dig into it. Because I'm about to pull out my grown folk pipe, which is not a pipe, it's really just a cigarette. But, grown niggas sit down and they throw philosophy at you while smoking on a pipe or something. But yeah, so, yeah, see, I have to check my shit. All right. So, when it comes to Tartaglia, we know what he is now. right? He is a main DPS. Why is that? This is just in case anybody's like relatively new to the game, which I imagine everybody is not necessarily new, but just in case somebody might not know exactly what I mean by that. What I mean by that is Mona can act as a sub DPS. Bennett can act as a sub DPS. Zhongli can act as a sub DPS. Why? Well, that's because their presence is felt on the battlefield without them having to be there. Whether it's that, or Bennett's ultimate, bam, and you still see their presence on the field, whereas he does not have that ability. So the way that you want to look at him from a practical standpoint is when he's not active, he is effectively not usable. He's not useful at all. There's nothing you can do with him, right? If you need something active in the meantime while you're doing what you're doing, that's not the guy to go with. This is why you'll see Tartaglia usually fit into teams with Xiangling, because Xiangling can do pyro, and when it comes to that, that's how you get vaporized comps. Now you can do this by Gooba, and now you hit that, and now you're getting vaporized, right? You can hit her ult, go back, and hit his. As you can see, it's off, but you hit her ultimate, you got this thing spinning around you, and you hit his skill, and now you're getting vaporized with her ultimate. And that's where the bulk of your damage is going to be coming from. But at that point, he is not the sub DPS. She's the sub DPS because she is active without being on the field. So that's what Tartaglia is. He is a main DPS. Now, you can technically, I want to clear this up. You can technically use him as a sub DPS, but you can technically use any character as a sub DPS the way you use him as a sub DPS, meaning that you can hit anybody's one-shot ultimate and then put him away. You can do that. He can do that. But that's not really like, oh, they're a sub DPS. Okay, they're just extra DPS you just got sitting in the back. Now, you can use them that way, but depending on the mission, or not mission, depending on the content you're running, is going to determine how you're going to use them. And the bulk of the time you're going to be using him, he's going to be running point. And then you're going to switch to Zhongli. And then you're going to switch to Bennett and maybe hit a couple things. And then you're going to switch to Zhongli and keep shit busy. And then you're going to go back and pop Gooba. And then you're going to pull him back out and hit his skill. And just to be quite frank, he plays quite differently at Constellation 6. Because at Constellation 6, all you have to do is pop your ultimate and it resets the cooldown on his skill. So you can rack up 45 seconds worth of cooldown, pop his burst, and you no longer have a cooldown. So this is how you see people magically pop his swords back out, because they're running C6. So your Tartaglia might not run like their Tartaglia. You might actually end up in a situation where he's unusable for a certain amount of time. Now, I'll tell you what some Tartaglia mains that I've met have told me, and that is that once you learn and fill out the cooldown for this, and you have a team strategy to be able to deal with his 10-second downtime, and you can do this for some seconds, you could do this for some seconds, you can pop out Gooba, and you can pop right back to him, a couple seconds downtime, and pop right back in, and then you're good. As long as you can manage his cooldown, great character. So that's what he is. Right? Now, why would you use him? The reason why you would pull him is if you need a Hydro DPS. Bow user is cool. Everybody needs a bow, but we got Amber, we got Fischl, we got, somebody might have Venti, so the bow is kind of out the picture. All right? But if you, what do you know? But if you need a Hydro DPS, and you have Xiangling, and you have some level of investment in your Xiangling, somehow, just maybe, a little bit even, then at that point, it might be beneficial for you to have Tartaglia. Why? Because once again, you can do Vaporize, you can do Permafreeze. If you have Rosaria, you can do Permafreeze. If you have Ganyu, you could do Permafreeze. If you have Ayaka, you could do Permafreeze. So on and so forth. If you have someone who can, if you have Diana, you could do Permafreeze. If you have Xiangling, you know, you can do Vaporizes. If you pull for Toma, if you plan for pulling for Toma, at that point you can do Vaporizes. You know, so on and so forth. If you're running the Shogun, you can do electrostatic comps, or they call it taser comps, right? So, but that's if you need a Hydro DPS and you're comfortable running that Hydro DPS in short bursts of running main. And you're also okay with running somebody else during the cooldown, then at that point, that's why you would pull them. Usually this is going to be a situation where you have a Xiangling who can hold down the fort while his cooldown is waiting. Or if you have a Shogun who can hold down the fort while his cooldown is waiting. Like let's say, for example, you run the Shogun. You pop her burst. It lasts for 7 seconds. And let me put it this way. If you run him, bam. You hit a couple dudes, you do the 1, 2, 3 charge attack, 1, 2, 3 charge attack, 1, 2, 3, bam. You got your 11-second cooldown. You pop that, that's 1 second. You hit her burst, 2-second startup. You run her burst. Now you got a 10-second duration overall. You go right back to him. And now his cooldown's done. You go right back to him, and you're back at doing electrostatic. As you can see, the little orbs over my head. At that point, it would make sense for you to pull for Tartaglia. If you have Fischl, similar concept. You know what I'm saying? You will pop out Fischl, hit Oz, hit her burst just to kill time, pull Xiangling out, hit that, set up Bennett again, bam, go right back to him. And you manage his skills in short bursts. If you're okay with that, then I feel like at that point, he's a great pull. He is a really good character, but you have to get comfortable with that. When would you pull for him? When you need a Hydro DPS. And if you're actively looking for a Hydro DPS, let's say you don't have Xingqiu, right? If you need if your account calls for a Hydro DPS, like the only way I can beat the Spiral Abyss because the meta is changing and I'm requiring all these big numbers, and I have Beto and I have Fischl and I have Xiangling and I have blah blah blah, but I don't have Xingqiu, I don't have Mona. Like, okay, at that point he actually would be a good pick because you need that at that point if you feel like you need it. And some people don't need it because they don't run that content. It's pretty much that cut and dry. Same thing for Hu Tao. The same thing I'm telling you right now is very similar to what I might end up saying when Hu Tao's banner hits. I just felt compelled that maybe I should give at least my 2 cents on this guy, because there's a strong divide in the community that's saying Tartaglia sucks, and then Tartaglia is the GOAT. And he's neither. He's right there in the middle. He's great at this, and he sucks at this. If you can manage this, and if you can manage his cooldown and maximize his burst, and really maximize the damage he's doing while he's in his skill, then he is a great character. But you have to be willing to not play as him on the field, and then he's a great character, if that makes sense. Right? So I'll give you a little 1-2. He's not the greatest character, but I'm going to put Mona's artifacts on him, and we're going to just run around as him for a little bit. We're going to run Hydro Noblesse. Actually, Mona doesn't even have these artifacts on right now. So we're going to run Hydro. It's not the greatest artifacts in the world, but he's going to run them. He'll run that, and he'll run this. And he needs a circlet, so we'll give him a crit rate circlet. Thank you, Mona. We're going to run the rest on him. Actually, we'll run Stringless. Sorry about that, missus. So, not the greatest stats, but you should be able to at least get the idea, right? So, let's go fight something. We'll go do this domain. All right. I'm gonna run the Shogun to show you Taser. Am I gonna beat it? I'm gonna be honest with you. I have no idea. I just need a spot with a lot of people. I'm gonna run Barber because I want a healer, and we're gonna run the Shogun for Taser, and we're gonna go on with this. See what happens. And I think for the sake of argument, I'll run an Adeptus just so he has at least a little bit extra help because he's not at 90. And I don't have a Hydro Oil, so we're going to have to make do. Okay. Hit the Shogun. Oh, don't got it. Alright, so this right here is called Riptide. It's absolutely amazing. Okay, I was in that for way too long, but that's okay. Yep, and I still got some seconds left. Right. So that's the long and short of it. And you'll run into that where he might not have his cooldown. Right. So, but you get used to it as you play him more and more. For all intents and purposes, I'm not used to it, but I can't call that a negative simply because I'm not used to it. You know, because it could be a positive. Because you could be leaving a burst on the table and not realize it. For example, I wasn't paying attention and didn't realize I had a burst with Zhongli until I switched to her, right? So, but that's for the most part what his gameplay is kind of going to look like. And you're going to flip back and forth between your characters a lot because if you go too long on his skill, you're going to experience a cooldown that you might not necessarily agree with, right? So, be careful if you pull him. Don't get sucked into a trap because he hits for 1,000,000 or he hits for 2,000,000 or he hits so much and this, that, and no, that's C6 with C6 whale comp situations. That's a totally different situation. He hits for 100K with a 4-star weapon. Yeah, but you got to look at the nature of it. That's like a Mona and a Bennett and a this and a that and all that shit. That's how he's doing that. I hit 60K off of Geo. What do you think a Vaporize is going to do? It's going to hit a lot, let alone his burst. It's going to do a lot of damage, right? So just go into it knowing that he is, for all intents and purposes, just another 5-star character. He is a great character with a huge setback. That's it. And that's where his balance comes into play. Is if this had a terrible, like if it had a reasonable cooldown, like 9 seconds, and then you can be off for a second and then go right back into it, he would be terrible. Now, my personal opinion would be that his burst should have been his skill, and his skill should have been his burst. But that's not up for me to decide. All right. So if you want to pull for him, good luck. If you have him, congratulations. Great character. I wish you the best of luck with it. And my best advice to you is the same thing that they told me. Just make sure you get used to his cooldown mechanics, and you should be just fine. The general consensus is the best weapons for him, 4-star wise at least, are the stringless because of the elemental skill and burst damage, and the rust because that drastically, and I mean drastically, improves the damage that he does on his normals. If you are a whale, then you already know what the situation is. Just go ahead and use the Polar Star. But if you are a whale and you think the Polar Star is ultimately better for nukes, it's not. The Thunder and Pulse, or whatever that thing is called, technically is still better for his nukes if you're a whale. At least that's what the biggest whale I know, I guess, proved. He had 1 point, I don't know, he had like 300,000 more with the Thundering than he did with the Polar Star, and that's because the Polar Star you have to ramp it up first. It was something like that. But yeah, so Tartaglia is a great character. We talked about the what. What is he? He is a main DPS that is borderline useless when he is not. He's basically useless if he's not on the field. Whereas she can do stuff on the field without being there. He can do stuff on the field without being there. Hell, even Barber can. He can't. So he is not a sub DPS in the traditional sense. And his technically a sub DPS is because you'll be playing as one character, you'll hit his burst, and then you'll switch back. That's his sub DPS. That's about it. That's about as far as his sub DPS goes. He's great for Taser. So if you have someone like Fischl, Beto with a burst comp, the Shogun, fantastic character for that. If you run Xiangling and coming in the future Toma, then you'll have 2 Pyro sub DPS that you can vaporize off of, so that's great for him. If you don't have Xing Cho and you need a Hydro DPS, your only option, unfortunately, if you don't have Mona, your only option is going to be a frontline DPS where you're going to hit your sub and DPS with him. That's going to be your option if you pull him. He is not a sub DPS. Keep that in mind. And just make sure you manage his cooldown. And as long as you can manage the cooldown on this, pop him in, do maybe 2 combos, and then switch him out. Do whatever you got to do, hit her burst, blah, 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 pop your shield. You know, obviously her burst is going to go longer than that, blah, blah, blah. By that time, she's probably done. You should have, your cooldown should be coming off a cooldown at that point. Pop it again, hit 2 combos, blah, 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 blah. So as long as you can get used to that, he's actually a really good character. Really good, phenomenal character. He's capable of permafreeze. Like, he's a really good character. So I just want to set you guys up for success, and I don't want you guys getting caught in the rigmarole of information out there in the internet. And I want to keep it more on a down-to-earth level rather than getting into the meta and the technicalities. From a realistic standpoint, I don't think anybody is hitting 1 million in this game unless you spend thousands of dollars. I think for the most part, all of us are capped out at around 40 to 80,000 on our burst. So I'm talking to the 80 to 40,000 burst players. He can do that. He just takes a little bit of an investment, and he does have a lot of pros to having him on your team. But the key thing is, remember, if you pull him, he's a main DPS. You are not subbing him. He has to lead the charge, and you have to have someone who can DPS alongside him, because he is not going to be on the field the entire time. So make sure if you do pull for him, make sure you have another invested character who can sub in for him when he is not available. Otherwise, you're going to be shooting a bow the entire time, and I don't think any of us want that, unless you got some godlike aim or situation set up for that. So good luck to anybody pulling for him. I hope this at least kind of ironed out some of the kinks, whether you should or should not pull. I have him, and I personally don't like him, but I have to call a spade a spade. And I'm not going to say that he's bad when he's actually not. He's just not conducive to my play style. And I don't feel like I need him that much for where I find enjoyment in the game. He doesn't fit that narrative for me. Maybe he does for you, but for me, he doesn't. So that's why I haven't invested in him at all. But with all that being said, the fact still lays, he is a great character. The one thing I recommend before I leave you guys with this little short podcast is that if you are still curious and unsure whether you like him or not, this is what I recommend to everybody that asked me about that. And I meant to tell this person earlier today who asked me about it. Hence, I'm doing this podcast. And that is spend a comfortable amount of time in here. And I really mean a comfortable amount. I'm talking like 3 days. We still got how many days left before he goes? We still got some time. We still got plenty of 13 days. You still got 2 weeks. Take like 3-4 days. Don't spend no primo gems. Just come in here and just hit try and just spend hella time Learn his character. Learn how to play the character. And if you like it, then go for it. But if the question is happening in your mind, should I or shouldn't I really don't know if I should. Probably an indication you should try him out before you go and pull for him. Don't pull for him because somebody told you to, because it's your money, it's your time, and I feel like you owe yourself that much, at least that much respect, to not frivolously spend your hard-earned Primo gems. And I just want you guys to make the best investment for yourself. So that pretty much wraps that up. Yeah, if you have any questions or feedback, or you want to tell me I'm wrong, fuck that child is trash, or fuck that child is the best, or whatever, leave it in the comments. It's all good. You know what I mean? I think I kind of get the general atmosphere surrounding this guy, but, you know, if you do have any opinions about him, you know, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm not going to trash it. Your opinions are your opinions. I'm just here to clear it up for my people who may be confused about this guy. And you guys are more than welcome to ask me in Discord. You guys are more than welcome to ask me on stream or in the comment section. So, yeah, without further ado, this is CS from DWP. Yeah, you know, good luck on everything in the future. If you guys have questions about Hu Tao, we do have some Hu Tao professiones in the Discord, particularly one named Hifumi. I would definitely recommend reaching out to him. Don't fall for the clickbait big one-shot numbers. That's not reality for the most part. I would rather you guys get a general idea of what you're going for. And maybe tomorrow we might do a little digging as far as Hu Tao and figure out where her strengths lie, when and why you would pull her, because once again, she's not a sub DPS either. So you can't just slap her on the team with Tartaglia and think it's going to work out, because their powers don't interact. They don't really overlap the same way support DPS characters do. So on and so forth. So anyway, without further ado, this is here from DWP. If you enjoyed this stream, or if this is of some help to you, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be hollering at you on the next piece of content. And as always, keep your wig screwed on tight, super tight. Stay sharp, stay aware, keep your head up, all right? And I'll see you on the next one, all right? Love y'all.